So, why do so many talented, capable people stay silent even when they know something is wrong? Whether it's fear of losing a job, damaging a relationship, or simply not believing that they're going to be heard. Self advocacy is one of the hardest, and it is the most important skills we can develop, especially in today's environment. I have an amazing guest joining us today, and she has spent her entire career helping people find their voice when it matters most. So please welcome today's guest. I have Kathryn Marshall, who is a fearless and tireless advocate for others. She is also the founder of Marshall Law. So, Kathryn, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm thrilled for you to be here and I can't wait to get into this conversation. As you know, I am a super fan of yours, and I'm always talking about, like, if you need somebody to go into, I'll call it battle, because sometimes that's what it
Yes.
is. Kathryn is your person, and your law firm represents, people who are fighting major institutions, government, media. Like, you're not afraid to go after and advocate for people who have potentially been wronged. And so we're thrilled to have you here. So, what does it really mean to be your own advocate? So, you spent your entire career advocating for thousands of people. What do you feel is that biggest misconception people have about advocating for themselves, and why does it become so difficult to use your voice for yourself?
I think most people really struggle with self-advocacy, especially at work, because they're worried that they'll upset someone or
Mhm.
that it'll come across as aggressive or uncooperative or they won't be liked. I think
Mhm.
people, and especially women, I think we can associate sometimes self-advocacy as a negative thing.
Mm.
Whereas for men, it's a very positive thing, but there is that fear that if you ask for a promotion, if you ask for a raise, if you say to your boss, hey, I didn't like that you did this, or here's an idea I have for something I think the company should do, it's this fear that you won't be liked or that they'll get mad at you. And that's really what a lot of clients tell me that they're
Mhm.
worried.
Yeah. Well, and there's also the flip side of that too, where you may speak up and somebody takes credit for something that you've suggested. And that becomes a major part of self-advocacy because you got to call that out.
Yeah, exactly. I did a speech a few years ago for the Women in Medicine conference, and there was like 3,000 female doctors there across Canada, and it was about self-advocacy. And a lot of them came up to me afterwards, and they said like, "Oh my God, I had no idea. Like I was allowed to negotiate my contract, or
Mm-hmm.
ask for a raise, or say that I didn't like being yelled at by the chief surgeon in the OR." I think a lot of people think that they're not even allowed to ask for better or ask for more. That's been my experience, at least with clients, is they always say to me, "Oh, but Kathryn, if I ask for this or if I say this, like, will I get fired or will I get in trouble?"
Mm-hmm.
So that's I don't know. I think we're socialized as kids, little kids in school to get along, right?
Mm-hmm. Don't make waves. Yes. And I hear it as well, Catherine, in my work. A lot of women will come to me with, I feel like I'm not being heard, I'm not feeling valued, and really having that confidence and that courage to speak up. It's difficult sometimes because there can be consequences, and you've seen that in your work, and there is this cost of you staying silent. So, if you think about your experiences, what are some of the emotional and professional cost of staying silent when somebody's being treated unfairly, or maybe credits being taken from them, or just the fear of, not speaking up?
Yeah, I mean, I've represented people who are whistleblowers, so they're in a
Mhm.
situation where, like, I had a client, and this is a public case, so I'm able to speak about it, but she was an emergency room physician and she went to work one day and it was super overcrowded at the hospital and she put a sign on the door saying, we're at capacity, don't come here. Because she knew that if patients turned up, they might die because there was
Mhm.
they were overcrowded. She got in a lot of trouble. She got pulled into a room. She had her privileges threatened by her boss. And when she came to me, I think there was that fear that if she kept pushing the issue, she would get fired. She would,
Mhm.
but we fought back. We fought back, and she ended up succeeding in her case and is now a very outspoken advocate for patient and physician safety in hospitals, which is great. But I think the cost of not speaking out or speaking up is that in most cases you're not going to protect yourself. Like I think if something bad is happening to your colleagues or to yourself and you don't say anything, it's just going to get worse, number one. You won't be saved. And you start to get gaslit.
Mhm.
That's a huge thing too. Like I have clients who come to me and they've been told for so long that like they're the problem or the things they're saying are not correct or they're wrong and they need like they're like, Kathryn, is this, am I crazy?
Mhm.
And you start to feel that way. So sometimes speaking up too and not that's like your reality check. Like you need to like go touch grass. You need to just say something and, not let other people convince you that your voice doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that example that you shared, thank you, number one, and thank that doctor for advocating and speaking up. I mean, that particular situation is life and death. So
Yeah,
she really was looking at what is the potential long-term impact if more patients were coming in, right? But there's
yeah,
also that internal impact for herself. Like, how do you live with knowing you didn't speak up in a
yeah.
situation that potentially could be life and death? And often our reality, I think we look for short-term fixes versus thinking about what is that long-term impact and how does that hurt me emotionally, mentally, physically, but also what is the impact on others?
Definitely. I really didn't fully conceptualize that until I started acting for women, acting for people who are being mistreated at work, whistleblowers. I didn't understand how important that personal integrity piece was
Yeah.
because I would say 95% of my clients, they all tell me the same thing, which is like, oh, this isn't about money for me. This is about like accountability, what is right. I need to feel good. I have a daughter, I have kids, I need to make sure that I'm doing stuff in my life right now that's making the world a better place for them. So you're absolutely right about like the cost of not speaking up is also just how is that going to settle in your soul, right? Like, how are you
Mhm.
going to kind of live with that? And, people's integrity is obviously very important to who they are. And like, people don't like feeling compromised. So you've got to do what feels right for yourself, but make sure you're obviously, if you're in a situation where you know something bad is happening and you want to speak out, go get that advice or go, talk to your friends. Like, don't you talk to a lawyer, just, talk to the people around you who care about you. Um, what are they saying to you? They're probably all saying, you got to do something, right? Because they care about
Mhm.
you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a lot of science now also where we suppress things that, especially for women, I mean, women are getting autoimmune diseases at incredible accelerated rates. And a lot of that is where we suppress and we don't speak up because of the fear of consequences. So, what kind of advice would you give someone who wants to advocate for themselves, but they are fearful of those consequences?
I think if you're in a workplace situation and you want to advocate for yourself, whether it's a positive thing like asking for a promotion or a raise, or maybe you're being bullied or harassed and you want to file an HR
Mm.
complaint, it's really important to firstly figure out like what are the policies of your company. Are there things that protect you? Like, for example, if you're filing a complaint to HR because you're being mistreated by your boss, there's usually protections that are within the HR processes that say you can't be retaliated against. or there's confidentiality provisions. But I think it's really important to know what your rights are and also know what it is you want. Like, what is your objective? What is your goal? And understand that before you go and you speak up. And if you are addressing something that's potentially negative, such as you're maybe confronting your boss because they mistreated you, or you're, making an HR complaint, get the receipts. You must record things. You have to have the emails. You have to protect yourself. Obviously, I see a different side of things. I see what happens when everything goes wrong. I have lots of clients who've been retaliated against. Unfortunately, it does happen. So you
Mhm.
need to protect yourself and not assume that your employer or the people that you think will protect you or have your back are going to have your back in the future. So you are allowed to record meetings, for example, if you're the part of that meeting and you don't have to disclose, but make sure you have that protection and those things that if shit hits the fan, you've got it.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And often, even clients that I work with, I will say to them, keep a paper trail, right? Create a
Yeah.
log, like, especially if there are multiple issue. If it's a one-off thing, that's very different. Don't make it an issue. But if it's something that's happening consistently, yeah, you need to have that paper trail. And when you talk about HR, like that's come up a lot in the research that I've been doing with regards to trust and power.
Mhm.
And, there's this HR gets a bad rap, and it's not the person, it's not the individual HR person, but it often is the liability of the company, right? Because HR is there to protect the company, not necessarily
Yes,
the employee.
definitely. And the other thing too, I coach a lot of clients on, how to get bonuses and raises and negotiate contracts. That's a very common thing that I help clients with. And I always say to them, if you're going to go to your employer or to really anyone and, negotiate for better terms or more money, have your pitch, have your sales pitch ready. If you want a promotion from your boss because you've done an amazing job over the past year, don't assume that they know everything you've been doing. You be shameless. But the men are, I promise they are. Be shameless. Go in there and say, I want this raise. I want this promotion because here are the 15 things I did this past year that helped the company's bottom line, that helped it grow. Here's how I contributed. Here's the market research I've done. Like, this is what it pays at other companies.
Mhm.
Have that all ready. Don't assume that they're just going to magically know. And a lot of people I find just assume that if they do good work and they keep their head down and like, they get great results, that they're going to be rewarded and they're going to be seen and acknowledged. And then they get really upset and really disappointed when that doesn't happen. Um, but you have to be your number one advocate in the workplace because no one else will
That's
advocate for
right.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And
Yes.
not to, I think this was an important comment you made earlier, not being ashamed to ask. You deserve it. And build your sales pitch, build your case. Here's why I believe this. Understanding that you bring value to the organization, and if you don't advocate for you and make sure your boss knows this, then nobody's going to. And not in an ego way.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point about ego because a lot of people, I think, have this fear of being seen as like a bragger or egotistical. And it's just like this fear that people have. And there's nothing egotistical about showing what your results are, right?
Yeah.
And the squeaky wheel does get the grease. Like there are people, like some people are very good in workplaces at navigating the internal politics. And, it's the person who's asking does get. But the flip side of that is this is something else I always tell clients. If you do go to your boss and you make a whole sales pitch for a promotion or a raise, and then it falls totally flat and you don't get anything, that is your time to ask yourself, am I in a place that's actually supporting me? And I tell people, like, do not stick around a work environment where they do not value you,
Yeah, it's true.
because there's some place somewhere else that will value you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree with you on that. And often we do feel it's easier to stay in that environment because we get comfortable or we like our colleagues or whatever that may be. But you do end up hurting yourself because you start then to second guess, and that self-trust, you start to question it. And it's important that you find the environments that are right for you. When you were talking about that, I wanted to highlight there was a podcast I did, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, with this woman. Her name's Peggy Klaus, and she has this fantastic book called How to Toot Your Own Horn Without Blowing It. And she gets into how to create your brag bag and how to do it in a way that's not
Yeah.
ego focused. So for our listeners, if anybody's struggling with how to self promote, go back and listen to that episode, pick up Peggy's book. Like I utilize her work all the time with clients because, to your point earlier, we are socialized not to speak up. And
Yeah.
if you don't, nobody's going to.
Especially women, like, we're socialized to not be egotistical. And before I got into law, I did a lot of media work. Well, I do a lot of media now, but it's more in
Mhm.
conjunction with my cases. But before I got into law, I would be like a talking head. So I was a pundit. I was talking about politics. I would, Chase producers would call me and they say, Kathryn, do you have a comment on this or that? And I'd be like, sure. And I remember a producer telling me once, he said it's so hard to get women to
Mhm.
come on these news shows and comment on things. And I'm like, really? Why? And he's
Mhm.
like, well, a lot of them will say, like, I'm not an expert or I don't know enough. And he's like, but
Mhm.
it's so easy to get men to come on. And I that has always stuck with me because I think, like, we women, we can second guess ourselves. Like, we think, okay, I can't ask for the promotion yet or the raise yet because I haven't done enough, or maybe I need to do a little bit more, or I have to be more, I have to have a better CV before I apply for this job,
Mhm.
or oh, I don't want to, like, nominate myself for this award because I'm not. I think we second guess ourselves a lot.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that just men do not do that. Like,
No, not at all.
no, they don't. And it's a lot of the socializing. And yeah, does it feel kind of cringy sometimes to be shameless? For sure. But you get over that cringe factor pretty fast once you start seeing those results. And I know the work you're talking about in the book, and, brag. I think, you know, people talk about, like, humble brags, but I mean, ultimately, it's just more the notion that, if you're not advocating for yourself and telling the world about why you're great and what you're good at, then no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not. So, and the people who get ahead in careers, especially big corporate environments, I deal a lot with clients at, like, banks and um, big companies, is the people who get ahead are the ones who are really good at self-advocacy.
Mhm. It's true. It's true. And people go, "Oh, I didn't know you were interested in that." And then it's
Yeah.
like, "How?" And so being able to you socializing what your desires are, what your goals are, like that is your number one priority in self-advocation, I think, personally. And
Yes.
making sure that you let people know what your desires are. And to your point earlier, if your company is not interested, let's say, then you make a change to a company that does want the same things that you're looking for. So I love that. So when we talk about, courage is definitely contagious, and I know you work on a variety of cases. Are there any examples where maybe where someone's willingness to speak up has had like a substantial impact, whether it be on that entire workplace or community? And what are some of the things we can learn from those moments?
Oh my gosh, like, all the time. So, I take a lot of cases that are what I call public interest cases. So they often involve people who are whistleblowers, or they are fighting the system, like a David versus Goliath situation. They're in the media, and for every case that you see in the headlines, of mine, there's always like hundreds of people who are behind the scenes who are reaching out to me or the client being like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one.
Mm.
I thought I was the only one who was going through what you were going through. And you've given me some courage to do something about it. Um, so I always tell clients, before they're going to go out to the media, I say, first of all, it's going to be hard. Obviously, you're the pointy end of the spear, but know that you're giving a lot of hope to people. I think everyone wants that validation. There's a reason why Reddit is so popular. It's because
Mm.
everybody wants to know that they're not the only one who has lived a certain experience, and they want that like camaraderie of like another random person, even if they're anonymous, being like, oh, I went through the same thing. That feels so validating
Mhm.
and so good. And what I really love with some of the cases is I love busting this myth that if you do advocate and speak out, that you're going to be destroyed and totally unhireable. That is such bullshit. I had a client yesterday. She's one of my most high profile clients, the one of the biggest cases in the country. She told me she just got a job, a really great job at a great organization. That happens all the time with my clients who are
Mm.
out there in the media. They don't become pariahs. They do not get destroyed. And I love busting that myth because it's one of the ways that powerful people and powerful organizations create that cone of silence is
Mhm.
by like perpetuating this myth that if you sue your employer, if you speak out, if you say something, you won't ever get a job. You'll get blacklisted. You'll become broke. You'll become hated. That's a lie.
Yeah. Not true. Not true.
Not
Yes.
true. No.
Love that. And something you mentioned there about systems. I've been doing a lot of research on systems and how systems are designed to actually keep us from speaking up. And,
Yes.
and especially women and keeping women from, whether it be getting the promotion. And I know you see that often. And so how do you start to challenge some of the actual systems that have been created that prevent or tries to prevent people from getting promotions or speaking out?
Yeah, I think promotions is an interesting thing. Like I have a lot of clients who get very frustrated because they've been in a job for like 7 years and they've applied for this promotion 6 times and they keep getting passed over. And the way that a lot of companies work is like they've got their official processes, but then they got their real processes, right? And like we all know what they are. It's, it's their friend, or they go out, drinking together with some of the other employees and they become friends, and it's the it's not a merit-based system. And it's really hard to challenge those processes. I mean, we have laws to help protect, like for example, you can't have a discriminatory promotions process. But I think like definitely something that people can do to challenge is make sure that they're holding these processes accountable.
Yeah.
So, um, the first thing I do when a client shows me an employment contract that they just got and they're negotiating is I say, well, why, first of all, why aren't you asking for more money? And they're,
Always. It's a
yeah.
test, actually.
Um, and then I'm like, why don't you have a clause in here that says that you want to have an annual performance review and that your job and your job title will be assessed every year, and like have that process. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You're good.
Yeah, there we go. It's fine. I thought I wasn't moving. I thought I was dead. I was like, why don't you ensure that process is like actually in your contract?
Mhm.
Because these processes need to be transparent.
Yeah.
If you don't know what the system and process actually is, you're never going to get it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, I think demanding transparency is really important. But yeah, just, if there's like these internal, there's like, for example, government, there's a whole like internal application process that exists that exists on paper, but oftentimes it's already rigged, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. And when you were speaking about that, like one thing that comes to my head, and I often will coach around this, is when companies do provide contracts, um, language is always very geared toward the company, and it's
Yeah.
always preventing the employee from being able to take any kind of action if required. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Language such as um, well, for an example, let's say you're entitled to X time for vacation, and then the employee or the employer comes back and says, well, we have the right to change that at any time, no questions asked, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, strike that out, initial it. Because if I give you something, I'm coming in a contract in good faith that you're going to honor that contract. And to me, that just sort of sets the tone of, so you're telling me, really, we have a contract that you're not going to honor.
Yeah, so I always tell people that at the beginning of the relationship, when you're negotiating the contract before you've started the job, that's when your negotiation leverage is the highest
Yes.
because they want you. They want you, and they might be willing to give you things to get you in the door. But once you're already there doing the job, your leverage disappears. So definitely, you want to look at what does your contract say about the bonus? If you have a bonus, lots of people have bonuses. Does it actually specify how you're going to meet that, how that bonus will be assessed? If it says it's completely discretionary, that's not good. We don't like that. You want to know on what metrics
Right.
is the company determining what your bonus is going to be, especially if it's significant.
Mhm.
Um, you want to have lots of subjective criteria. I don't like to see bonuses that are based primarily on objective criteria that you have no control of. You want it to be based on your performance primarily. That should be the majority of the bonus because your hard work should result in you making more money. So you want to get that clarity at the beginning. If you're getting things like stock options or RSUs or deferred compensation, you need to ask, can I understand how that compensation works? What is the vesting schedule? When I
Hmm.
want to exercise the stock options, what will the strike price be? Ask for that information. If the employer will not give it to you up front, if they say, well, we can't give it to you until you sign and start the job, that's a red flag.
Hmm.
You're not dealing with someone who's transparent. They're not being transparent about money and and compensation. And that's not good. That's not fair. And that to me is a red flag that this is an employer who's never going to be transparent about compensation. And I would say stay away from places like that.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, because it's that hidden unknown, and they're asking a lot of you, but you also have to ask a lot of them. So let's
Yes.
have that transparency up front.
Yes, but Vicki, a lot of people are scared to ask. Like
Yeah, I
they'll
know.
say, "Well, I don't want to ask for this because what if they rescind the job offer?" And I say, "Well, if they rescind the job offer because you asked for a copy of the bonus plan, then girl, you don't want that job.
Exactly.
Like that's probably not a place you want to work."
Exactly, exactly. As you pointed out, it's a red flag. So pay attention, and we've got a lot of intuitive wisdom. If you feel something's off, something's probably off. So
Yeah.
pay attention to that. So Kathryn, how do you advocate without becoming adversarial? And I think that's a big one for people.
Well, I wish I knew. Obviously, all my advocacy is very adversarial. I'm in an adversarial situation every day, and but um, I there when I coach clients,
Yes, that's
yes, I tell them first, don't ever make it about the other person. As
Mhm.
soon as people hear you, they immediately the defense comes up. They get defensive, right? Um, so don't make it about the other person. If you, for example, if you uh, don't like maybe the way you were treated. Maybe your boss spoke to you in a meeting that was embarrassing and said things to you that were not accurate in front of others, and you want to address it with them. Um, first of all, have set up a meeting. Don't do things over email. Email always comes off way more adversarial and aggressive than people want it to because there's no tone. So what happens is people read emails, and I see that I do a lot over the phone because I've fallen into this trap too. When people read emails, they substitute whatever tone they're thinking in their mind.
Yeah.
So they'll read your email as like having the most aggressive tone. So first of all, have a meeting, a real meeting, face to face, not even Zoom, like when human beings are together, it's uh, people shift, like
Yeah.
it's more relaxed. People are going to act a little more normal. So have a meeting, um, have an agenda for the meeting, so know what it is you want to say in that meeting, and don't make assumptions. So that's the other big thing. Like, so you would maybe, with the situation I brought up, you would say, um, wanted to talk about this meeting that we had the other day. You said some things in the meeting that I have some questions about. First, find out what it is that person meant and why they said those things.
Yes.
That's so important because you want to get them talking. You want to do hardly any talking. Let them talk. That gets people more relaxed. But yeah, definitely, yeah, my main rules for like, let's keep it less adversarial is like no email, no phone, no Zoom. Try to have human contact. Don't rush out with accusations. Obviously, keeps yourself in control. So, like, keep your nervous system in control. I know, Vicki, we've talked a lot about just you and I about like not being reactionary, and I think like being in more of a calm Zen state when you're addressing something is really important. Um, uh, yeah, that's really like honestly having like a real conversation. And I think what happens, because I see it all the time, it all starts with an email. And then it just completely explodes, like spirals out of control. And I would say that's like the beginning of most workplace conflicts.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Because there's so much interpretation. And I love it that you bring up that human interaction because when you are face to face, of course it is, your nervous system goes crazy to your point, but it does neutralize the other person so
Yes.
that you can have a rational conversation. And to your point, it's not making assumptions or interpretations that they were there to attack you or sabotage you. There's many, many things that could be going on, but understand what was that intent. But I think
Yeah.
it's also important for that person, whether it's your boss or whoever, to understand what the impact was on
Yes.
you, right? It might not have been intentional. I mean, who knows? They could have had a phone call before they walked in that meeting that set them off for whatever reason. And but actually asking, what was
Yes.
that about?
Exactly. And also at the same time, making sure you don't sugarcoat, yeah, your own feelings
Yes.
and you're clear and direct with what you want and how you experience that and what you want moving forward. That's really important too. Look, humans are not by nature like adversarial. Most people really struggle with it. Like I will be talking to CEOs of major companies who are they tell me, they're like, I can't handle any interpersonal conflict. So people by nature are really, they might be like amazing at their jobs. They're not good at conflict. They don't want conflict. They're very, very conflict adverse. And I actually find what ends up happening is like people want to address stuff in the workplace, but um, they're so scared of coming across as being aggressive or adversarial that they tone it down so much and they sugarcoat it so much that they end up just not saying it. Like, whatever they're trying to convey didn't even come across at all. So I think it's a balance. You want to be, but you want to be like respectful and human, but you want to be firm too and clear and
Yeah.
set up that boundary. And I always coach people to do in-person meetings. If they're not geographically in the same area, I say do it over Teams or Zoom. Um,
Mm.
and I'm the same way. Like, look, I'm in fights all the time, but sometimes if I need to just diffuse a little bit, I will have a meeting. I will have a Zoom with opposing counsel. I will try and get to them on a bit of a human level. And people don't behave. People will say things over the phone or email that they will not say to someone's face.
So true.
They won't. Yeah.
Yeah. So true. And I love what you just shared there because I think that's also applicable personally. Because when you're having conflict with a partner or right, it's really neutralizing that and not ruminating and building those stories in our minds, but actually having the conversation face to face to determine like where is that coming from.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think, look, know yourself. Like I know, like for example, I run hot, okay? Like if I see someone coming, if they're in my face or they're in my inbox or they're coming after my client, I'm gonna just wallop them. And I know like sometimes my husband will have to tell me like, Kathryn, you don't need to be a litigator at our house. Um, but kind of know yourself. And if you're in like a state of fight or flight and you're like feeling like
Mm.
you're really reactionary, like you're really mad about something, that's not a good time to fire off an email, okay?
Yes.
Or pick up the phone. Like just you need to get in a state where you have some control over your nervous system for you to actually be able to talk to the other person about it. And I think that just goes, that's advice for like across the board. I know
Mhm.
for me, like I don't have work email on my phone because I know that I will, if I get angry at opposing counsel or, some asshole that I'm suing, I will fire off something I will regret. I know that about myself.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't know that about themselves though. And I think uh people, I have had many clients come to my office who have sent communication they regret.
Mhm. Yeah, that's it. Well, but and that's the reaction,
Yeah.
right? And you said this earlier, but it's calming that nervous system down, taking that pause so that you can respond thoughtfully versus reacting. And we all do it. We all do it. Kathryn, I'm like you. I'm very aware, but I still do it sometimes.
Because it feels good.
Yeah, sure it
Honestly, it feels
does.
good. It's like a release. But you know what? I tell my clients this because they get very ups. We all get upset, especially in litigation. You get the statement of defense from the other side, and they say horrible things. I say, still get it out, like write it down how you're feeling, and send it to me or just put it in your drafts. Like, still get that reaction out, but don't send it off to a bunch of people, right? I've seen a lot of that in the workplace with the cases that I have where like someone, sent a crazy resignation notice at 3 in the morning or
Mm.
fired off an email to their boss. And oh, that's the other thing with email. Watch out for email, everyone, because it is so easy for emails to get forwarded around. People accidentally CC someone else. They don't mean to. I mean, be very careful before you put something in an email
Mhm.
about another person unless you're prepared for that person to see it, because they probably will eventually see it.
Mm. Great advice. That's yeah, really great advice.
And Microsoft Teams as well. Like I have had cases where I just couldn't believe what people were saying in the team Slacks and the Microsoft team discussions about their coworkers, about their workplaces. They're putting it in writing. Yeah.
Yeah. Think, what is that? We have two ears and one mouth.
Yeah, for sure. And this is more just like me trying to give people protectionary advice because
Yes.
I know, the if you have like, for example, a workplace gripe, you're upset at your boss or something happened, the natural tendency you're going to have is obviously you're going to want to vent your frustration to a coworker. But
Yeah.
be very careful about that. Like I have seen so many people be betrayed by that.
Mm. Great advice. Great advice. So I'm gonna have to wrap us up, but I'd like you to maybe share. for everybody who's listening and they're absorbing the conversation we're having today. So what would be one thing they could do differently this week to become a stronger advocate, whether that's for themselves or someone else? And what would you hope, the action would be that they would take?
I think everyone should, I think the thing I would say is like think about what is something that you want in your life that you have not attained yet, that you haven't asked for.
Mm-hmm.
And think about how you can go about advocating for that thing and why haven't you asked for it yet? And really think about it. Is it because you're scared of rejection, or you're scared that you'll not be seen as nice, or that you won't be liked? And then ask yourself, what do you care about more, that thing you want or being liked?
Love that. That's great advice. Awesome. And so, Kathryn, if somebody is, potentially in a situation that violates their rights as an employee or human rights, like how do they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. That would be the best place to follow me, is on LinkedIn. Just type in Kathryn Marshall. And I post a lot of things like about cases, but just general advice. I like to just educate the public. So we post a lot of stuff there. You can also go to my website, which is marshalllaw.ca. Marshall has 2 L's and then law, so like 3 L's in there. I'm also on Instagram if you look up Marshall Law Canada. So those are the best ways to find me, and then you can connect with me from there.
Love it. Love it. Well, I want to thank you for being so fearless and tireless as an advocate. Like, I see a lot of the cases that you are supporting and representing, and there's no better advocate that I've seen than how you go after people's rights. And you have this ability to be such a protector for people and listen and make them feel valued and that they matter. And so thank you for the work that you do. Super grateful to know you and to know what you do.
Thank you for the work you do and helping
Oh,
women have confidence and advocating for themselves. That's so huge.
thank you, Kathryn. Okay, that's going to wrap us up today. But, audience, I want to thank you for joining us. Listen, if this episode resonates with you and you know someone who is struggling potentially with advocating for themselves, like you can reach out to Kathryn, you can reach out to myself. You know how to contact both of us now, and we'll put that in the show notes so that you have it. But also, as always, we do have a free leadership quiz on our website. If you want to get some insight as to how you're showing up, it may actually answer some questions you have about your own communication and advocacy. So be sure to go on, visit the website, take that free leadership quiz. And if you have questions, reach out to me. Happy to have a conversation and just talk about, what your communication is doing for you or against you. Kathryn, thank you so much for being here. Have an amazing day. And thank you, audience, for being here and listening into the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for Will Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.